Now that Derek Carr has retired from the New Orleans Saints, they need to go get Aaron Rodgers. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Lauren Cox. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the first revealed game of the season between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Was there a better game out there? Also, we'll talk about the circus that happened in Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders and the Browns over the weekend, but we'll start with the biggest news right now, and that's the New Orleans Saints quarterback position now that Derek Carr has retired. Before we get into it, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first to listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Lauren, you hear the news that Derek Carr retires. What was your first thought when it comes to who their next quarterback is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, first thought is like, maybe they didn't know he was going to retire, but the plan was kind of that he was either going to be hurt and miss the whole year or maybe retire. And so it's not like it's new to them. It's new that he's gone. It's new that you got some cap space now. But I think the feeling was like, hey, they had to go with one of these other young quarterbacks because that seems to be their plan A now.
Yeah, they get the $30 million in cap space next year. He definitely did him a favor. He could have taken that $30 million guaranteed right now, but he ended up giving it back and just taking the $10 million that they restructured with last, like a couple of months ago. So he definitely did the Saints a favor. This is a win for the Saints financially speaking. But you're right. I guess that's the way to look at it. He was uncertain. I guess I'm making an admission here, Lauren. I kind of never really bought like the whole fiasco of he may be out for the entire season. And apparently that was wrong. Obviously, he's out for career. So, he's clearly out for the season. But I always kind of felt like there was something weird going on in New Orleans. Maybe it was like a money play or he wanted to get traded or something like that. I didn't really see an outcome where Derek Carr would absolutely retire. So, I guess you are right. It looked like, one of those guys was going to have to start anyway, but I didn't buy it, so maybe that's my fault. But my guy Ross Jackson, the mastermind, who can barely take vacation without the Saints breaking some crazy news, he broke down what's next for the New Orleans Saints at quarterback.
Everybody's eyes go directly to rookie quarterback Tyler Shough. And yes, Spencer Rattler will absolutely be a part of this conversation as well. But most immediately, the eyes are going to go to Tyler Shough. Why? Because Tyler Shough's going to be on the field today. Spencer Rattler will not. That's why the eyes are going to go immediately to Tyler Shough. And we've been pretty confident that one way or another, that Tyler Shough was going to end up being a starter for this New Orleans Saints team in 2025. I've been pretty firm on the belief that he'll be the week one starter, because he's this coaching staff's selection. But Spencer Rattler absolutely deserves his shot to convince them otherwise. But the eyes are first going to go to Tyler Shough. So the Saints are going to have a big situation here. They're going to have to allow this competition to play out. It's going to have to be as fair as possible. But if it's tied or if it's close, Tyler Shough is probably going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Now, I agree with Ross. Out of the guys on the roster right now, I think it's pretty obvious to me that they would go with the quarterback that they just drafted as a new coaching staff over previous projects like a Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler that Ross mentioned there. But, Lauren, can I just be honest? Those guys are terrible. I think Tyler Shough is terrible too. I think we're talking about Tyler Shough, Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler. If you took every quarterback and backup quarterback in the NFL, that's 64 guys. I think all three of those guys would be ranked 50 or lower. I would have Rattler lower than 64, and I would have Haener lower than 64. And Tyler Shough, maybe 50, 51, 52, something like that. I just do not believe in any of these guys. So in my opinion, unless the Saints are truly taking their medicine and tanking, which, listen, if they do that, I've been begging them to do it for a couple of seasons now. I'm not going to be mad at them if they do it, but I just have a hard time believing that they're going to go into the season with those three quarterbacks and only those three. Aaron Rodgers is still out there. would you rather play for New Orleans or play for Pittsburgh if you're Aaron Rodgers? I think there's a discussion to be had there based on the division. And, what about other options like a trade for Kirk Cousins, or could they go trade for Kenny Pickett just to get another guy in there who played with Kellen Moore in Philadelphia last year? Like, I just refuse to believe the Saints are going to continue piling forward with just these three quarterbacks, and that's all it's going to be for them. If you are Aaron Rodgers, would you rather play for the Saints or the Steelers?
Well, that's what's tricky about this, right? Because are the Saints a team that is ready to compete right now with a veteran quarterback if you put one in there? Like they felt so far away when Derek Carr was the veteran quarterback in there, and maybe Aaron Rodgers is better than Derek Carr at this stage of their careers, and I don't know where you want to put Kirk Cousins in that matrix there, but it just feels to me like there is talent there, and they invested in the offensive line some more and brought back Brandon Cooks and all that stuff. But like, it doesn't seem to me like if I'm Rodgers, do I go there and am I going on a deep playoff run? I mean, not that the Steelers are perfectly primed either, but at least you feel like with Tomlin and company there's something a little bit more established, whereas like this is year one of Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley in New Orleans. Like they're going to be figuring some things out. And if I'm 42 years old or however old Rodgers is, maybe I don't have time for them to figure things out. I need to plug and play.
Well, here's the argument I would make. If I was the Saints pitch man, I would say this. After George Pickens is traded, you look at, is Shaheed going to come back healthy? We'll see Chris Olave in there as well. You got a decent offensive line. They add Kelvin Banks. Now you can move Fuaga to the right-hand side. You got something there. You got Alvin Kamara in the backfield. You got Kellen Moore, who I think may be more willing to meet Rodgers halfway than Arthur Smith or Mike Tomlin might be. I think Kellen Moore's offense would be a better fit for Aaron Rodgers than Art Smith's. And the division. If you're Aaron Rodgers, what's the more likely path to a playoff win, to go outright? It's New Orleans. It's in the NFC South, not the AFC North, and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and all these other quarterbacks in the AFC. So I think going to the NFC South and being in New Orleans, which is a better climate than Pittsburgh for a guy like Rodgers, who's a California guy, maybe that New York climate made him like, man, I'd love to go south. So I actually think if I were Aaron Rodgers, now that George Pickens is gone, I would go ahead and go with New Orleans because the weaponry around me in Pittsburgh isn't so awesome that it's going to give me a much bigger advantage.
But the defense is a bit more awesome, I'd say, at this stage.
There is a difference there.
And DK Metcalf and Robert Woods ain't nothing to scoff at, especially whichever team's more willing to go get your guy Alan Lazard from the Jets. That's where I'm going if I'm Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's just that simple. No, I understand, and that's it's a good debate, and that's why we both can see it from both sides. But I just think, the total of everything, if you really want to go win, I think now that Pickens is gone, the allure has gone down at Pittsburgh. I still think Rodgers ends up with Pittsburgh, but I have a hard time believing that the Saints can just roll forward with those three quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett is the one who I actually think they go and get because of the Kellen Moore connection. He was with Kellen Moore in Philly last year. Maybe Cleveland would just flip Kenny Pickett to New Orleans for the same thing they paid to get him. So it's no harm, no foul. You have Shedeur Sanders. You have Dillon Gabriel. You have Joe Flacco. Like, they have enough in that room. They're not going to keep all four. And speaking of Cleveland Browns and their quarterbacks, drama with Ohio football this weekend. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I love how you can continue betting your player props throughout the game. You can combine them all together for a live same-game parlay and a $200 bonus bet. I mean, that makes every single bet exciting. Plus, right now, if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up because you can head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Lauren, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the New Orleans Saints situation, why I don't buy their quarterback room. But speaking of a quarterback room that we need to discuss, rookie minicamp happened in Cleveland over the weekend. And of course, the Browns minicamp was a circus with Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, the two rookie quarterbacks. And guess who got first team reps? It was Dillon Gabriel. And of course, that set the internet abuzz. And my guy Spencer from Locked On Browns talked about his report with all rookies included, of course, for the Cleveland Browns.
Day one of rookie minicamp in the books here out of the Browns practice facility in Berea. And obviously it was all eyes on the quarterbacks. Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders sharing reps throughout the day. It was Dillon Gabriel who was up first, which was a big topic for Kevin Stefanski after practice. He said not to read into it. He said, frankly, it's not something that they're keeping track of right now, and that it could even change tomorrow. We'll see. But obviously this time of year in an open competition, that's going to be something we all keep our eyes on. But I thought both looked as advertised. What the scouting report says about them certainly proved true the first time they're out here in shoulder pads and a helmet. The other rookies all showcased their own abilities as well. I thought Harold Fannin looked like he very much fits in, even at 6'3", as a bigger tight end that's going to be able to make some plays.
All right, Spencer, you're my guy, but the reality here is people don't really care about Harold Fannin Jr. right now. Quinshon Judkins had a pretty good performance. Look, I get it. You know, the quarterbacks are what matter. And they could say, like, oh, we didn't even care. We didn't notice. I'm sorry, Dillon Gabriel went first, and somebody made the decision for him to go there first. Players don't just play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets reps with the first group. Whether it matters or whether it doesn't, they made a decision there to let Dillon Gabriel go out first. And what was crazy to me, Lauren, is we saw some people who were there saying Shedeur Sanders was clearly more sharp. Shedeur Sanders, clearly the better player. Then you have other beat reporters on site saying that Dillon Gabriel was better, and there's clips of Shedeur Sanders and throws, and people hating on them, people saying that they look good. And it's just, this is exactly what teams were worried about, is you cannot literally do anything at all. And everyone who has an opinion on Shedeur Sanders, or everyone who has an opinion on the situation, whether you're for Sanders, against Sanders, is just constant arguments. And it's like, guys, this is exactly what teams were worried about the most.
And it's clear that the Browns weren't very prepared for this. And maybe It's for the sign that the coaching staff didn't want to do this, because you can't just let all of this noise, continue to go. Like when you're Kevin Stefanski, the last thing you can do is say, and don't worry about it. Don't look into it. Like, you have to come out and say, here's how we're doing it. Today, Dillon Gabriel got the first rep. Tomorrow, Shedeur Sanders get the first rep. Like, you have to come out and say, here is our plan. Here's what we're going to do, so that you don't leave this void for the noise to fill, right? If you communicate clearly what you're doing, then there can't be noise, because everyone kind of knows, well, the Browns said this is how they're handling it. But because Kevin Stefanski go out there and it's like, well, don't read into it, we're kind of just filling out. We didn't really have no. You have to lay out the narrative, or else the outside noise will create the narrative for you, and that's what's a distraction.
100%, dude. The space will be filled. If there is not something to fill it, the space... Honestly, you kind of triggered me there. I got like some PTSD from covering Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel, when he was with the Titans, and Mike Vrabel will be like this with the Patriots, so secretive, so coy, so I'm not giving you anything, that in my opinion, that leads to further speculation. And if the thought process from the coaching staff is, I want to protect the players, or I don't want to send a bad message to the locker room and announce it, by saying, hey, we're going to let Dillon Gabriel take the first snaps today, tomorrow it's Shedeur Sanders, we've made no decisions on who's above who, none of that's going to come until later. It's simply, we want to give a guy a shot to start this time, do it the other way. This means very little in terms of the depth chart, but this is the plan that we have. When you don't do that, like you said, you create more speculation. You allow all the talking heads like us to figure out, what are they doing? Why are they doing? Instead of just being transparent, telling the truth, and letting it be there, you make it worse on the players. You make it worse on the locker room. You create more heat and more controversy and more questions for your players when you don't give clear, concise, transparent answers. And to me, Lauren, it makes them seem, like you said, that they don't have a plan. And if they knew that this was coming, and they've had a few weeks now to get ready for this after the draft, and they did not have a solid answer to lead people to what they were doing, it looks like they don't have a good plan. And for you to be in this situation, as ugly as it looked and how it played out, and then to not have a good plan after, like, it's just classic Cleveland Browns.
Well, and it's crazy to me that if you don't have a plan now at rookie minicamp, when it's just the two quarterbacks,
right?
How is that going to go when you add in Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and then I know Deshaun Watson's not like healthy or participating, but like he's still the specter of Deshaun Watson overseeing all this too. Like right now, it's just the two quarterbacks. That's the easy part to say, hey, here's how we're going to do it. We don't like exactly how you worded it earlier. But then when you get to four quarterbacks, that's just going to increase even more of the noise and the need for like structure and communication so that you can control your own narrative.
Yeah, if you can't manage your own store, I'm not making you a regional manager. Like, that's just, that's not going to happen. But I do want to move to another chaotic, controversial situation in the state of Ohio with football, and it comes from Trey Hendrickson. And this is something that actually just popped up on Monday. So I say the weekend, but hey, make it a long weekend. Go into Monday, folks. You know how it goes. You make your own schedule. You're a free human being on earth. But Trey Hendrickson put out a statement to ESPN on Monday, and man, it's getting ugly. He said, quote, "No communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post-draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continued to play at a high level." He led the NFL at 17.5 sacks. It's a high level. Back to the quote. "Coaches are aware of these past conversations. Rather than using collaboration to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating. I have been eagerly awaiting a resolution to this situation, but that's hard to do when there is no discussion and an evident lack of interest in reaching mutual goals." Trey Hendrickson is fed up. He should be fed up. And quite honestly, I think the best thing for both is to trade him. I will continue to bang this drum. I know the Bengals are in win now mode. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, they do not have the resources to stock the rest of the team around their big three on offense. I would trade Trey Hendrickson. Don't go into another season with these contract cancer issues going on. Just send him to a new place, get draft capital back, and start to build your roster.
Yeah, it gets tricky the later you go here as teams have less and less salary cap space. But I still think there's a few nice options there. But it does feel like when you draft Shamar Turner in the first round, like they still have Miles Murphy.
Shamar Turner is his teammate.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to just like
same D line.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to kind of grease the wheels and say, hey, we need to have a backup plan here for this. But like, I think you've mentioned this before in this podcast, but if I'm the Detroit Lions, like this just makes so much sense to go get that bookend pass rusher here with Aiden Hutchinson and go all in. And yeah, you're probably gonna have to sacrifice some future draft capital and salary cap flexibility, but like your window's closing here quickly. So go out and make this one big splash.
No, and I love it for Washington too. The Commanders. I think that makes a ton of sense. They need that top tier, high level pass rusher. Quite honestly, they did it with Debo. They did it with Tunsil. If they're truly going all in like they've already been all in, why not go get Hendrickson? And at this point, you have to give up draft capital next year, not this year. So it's not going to hurt your team or your resources at all this year other than the cap space and the money that'll be necessary. But again, Trey Hendrickson, 17.5 sacks, 2 straight seasons. Like if you want pure production and you're going all in with a quarterback on a rookie contract, Trey Hendrickson makes a ton of sense. And trading him to the NFC, both those teams make sense. Bengals are a small organization. They don't like egg on their face. They are not going to trade him in the AFC or anywhere close to them. I don't believe that. Like Indianapolis could be a team that could make sense, but they're not going to do that. Like 2 hours over, no way. They're not doing that. So I think those NFC teams do make a ton of sense. But do you think that they should trade him or do you think that they should pay him?
It just feels like classic Bengals, like botching it. They ruin it. They publicly negotiate very poorly and then end up either costing themselves way more money on the contract they give out or get even worse trade value for a player that should be really valuable in the trade market. Like Cincinnati they shouldn't be able to afford to trade Trey Hendrickson. Like of all the things they can't do this offseason, it's trade Trey Hendrickson. And yet they've seemingly stepped on the rake at every corner and hitting themselves in the face.
Literally, it's Three Stooges at the end. Like, that's what it feels like. And it's crazy that you just say it's classic Bengals and then I just said 5 minutes ago, it's classic Browns. And it pains me that, the state of Ohio, the great state of Ohio, the home of professional football, shout out the Dayton Triangles, the teams in Ohio outside of college, man, the professional football teams just cannot get out of their own way. The poor folks in Ohio. I guess that makes sense why a 35-year-old Ohio native would end up liking the Titans instead, because who could follow those franchises? But with that being said, let's talk about 2 franchises that I think could be really good and entertaining this year, and they're also going to play opening game of the season, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. All right, Lauren, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We have talked about the Saints quarterback situation. We've talked about the misery of Ohio football right now. Now we need to move to some more excitement. The NFL schedule is dropping this week. We're going to have a ton of schedule content up for you here on Locked On NFL, all over the Locked On Podcast Network on the NFL channels. Make sure that you're checking all of that out. But we got wind of the first game of the season. It's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. And I personally, Lauren, love this matchup. I'm so excited to see the Cowboys offense with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I'm so excited for the Cowboys to just be exciting again. And our guys over at Locked On Cowboys, Marcus and Landon, talked exactly about that offense and how things look.
Yes. Now let's talk about Pickens, because he's not a high volume receiver. He's actually at his best when he's getting like 4 to 5 to 6 targets a game because of the way he's used, right? Yeah. Think like Michael Gallup. He's this high receiver where you're throwing him the ball down the field and letting him make plays. So I don't see a scenario in which he gets like 120 targets unless he gets hurt. And real quickly, I do think it's important that the Cowboys establish a hierarchy because, and I'm going to say this, if Pickens thinks that he is the wide receiver 1B to CeeDee Lamb's 1A, I think some problems could come up. But if he knows he is the clear-cut number 2 in this offense, I think things can go very, very well.
You know, I got to be honest. I don't think it has to be that. I don't think that he has to be. I think there could be a ton of games where Pickens gets more targets than CeeDee Lamb. Like, I don't think it should be astronomically different. You know, we're not putting CeeDee Lamb in the number 2 wide receiver role, but why wouldn't you want a 1A and 1B? Why would that be a bad thing if Pickens gets, 2 less targets a game than CeeDee Lamb? There are matchups where George Pickens is going to have a better, more advantageous situation. So I know that Marcus wasn't a huge fan of the Pickens signing, and I'm sure that he would probably agree with what I'm saying, and it's just a different thing. But I guess I just don't think it's a bad thing if George Pickens comes in there saying, I'm a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, and you hope that he's right, and you have 2 number 1 wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, why not have them? Like, there was a whole thing last year when the Bears added Keenan Allen and then Roman Dunze. They said it's a race to 1,000 yards. Who's going to be the first one to get to 1,000 yards? And they want everyone to get to 1,000 yards. Like, why not kind of make that an ongoing competition?
Yes.
Not like literally per se, but just kind of say, hey, you're both number 1s. Who can get to 1,000 yards first? Like, make it a friendly sort of competitive drive there, because they're both going to get targets. And I would think they're reasonable enough guys to say, well, like if he gets 1 more target than me, am I going to be mad that game? No. But if he gets 6 more targets than me, then I might be mad. But like there's a way to distribute it and keep everyone involved in a way that, sure, who technically is number 1 kind of fluctuates, but really in the end, it's like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in Seattle, where it's like, who's the number? Well, they're both like high end guys, T Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like, I guess Jamar's kind of more truly the number 1 there, but you get the point, right? Yeah. They don't have to be Batman and Robin. They can be superhero combination that's a duo. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Oh no.
Hey, world's finest, Batman and Superman. We got Superman trailer coming out this week. Just call it that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm with it there. Showing off my nerd skills there for you, Lauren. But moving right along, some people are upset about this matchup. Some people think that this is not a great game to open the season. And listen, I just disagree. Again, I'm excited about the Cowboys. I like what they bring to the table this year. I complained all season they were simply just boring. So I'm excited about it. But Lauren, I will ask you this. Out of the other teams that seem like they were possibilities, the Commanders, the Giants, the Bears, the Lions, the Raiders, the Rams, the Broncos, out of those teams that were other options, do you think that there was a better game out there than Cowboys-Eagles?
I think Cowboys-Commanders is kind of the easy.
Eagles-Commanders or Cowboys-Commanders?
Sorry, Eagles-Commanders. Sorry, I was thinking about the Cowboys.
I was going to say, I think the Cowboys are exciting too, but hey, screw you, Eagles.
Yes, no, obviously it has to be the Eagles. Yes, Eagles-Commanders, I think, was kind of the obvious, more exciting one there. It's just tough because I think back to last year in the 2 Cowboys-Eagles games, it was like 40-7 and like 35-7. And different teams, different seasons, of course, but like I don't see this Cowboys team as like changing out McCarthy for Brian Schottenheimer, and albeit having a healthy Dak Prescott, but like making some massive jump forward there. So I think the Jaden Daniels versus Jalen Hurts, the the king versus the up and comer in the division there, trying to show off and say, hey, here's what's Jaden Daniels going to do in year 2. Can he come out right out of the gate and make a big statement against the defending Super Bowl champions? Or do the defending champions say, no, we're still ahead of this still ahead of this division, and you've got some catching up to do still, young pup?
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm looking at like the outcomes of the game, I guess. Eagles beat Commanders. It's, Commanders can't get over the hill. Commanders beat Eagles, and it's, it's week 1. They can do it. Let's see them do it in the postseason. If the Cowboys beat the Eagles, that to me would be the biggest, headline. That would be the biggest electricity, even more than a Commanders upset of the Eagles. A Cowboys going into Philadelphia on ring night and upsetting them. The Cowboys are back. How about to me, I can't help it. I'm the host of a couple of shows. I love the juice. I can't help it.
But if the Eagles blow out the Cowboys, it's like, womp womp,
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think the Eagles are good. I don't think it'd be unlikely for the Eagles or Commanders to blow each other out. You're more guaranteed a close game. So it's less variance there. Whereas I agree, Cowboys upsetting the Eagles is the most exciting, but that game gives you either the most exciting or the least exciting. And some of these other teams kind of land somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think there's an argument and there's a reason that a lot of people are not necessarily happy about the pick.
Well, and I'll tell you, a lot of Bears fans were bracing for it being Chicago because, Ben Johnson's first game, Caleb Williams year 2, and a lot of Bears fans are really glad it's not the first game. I think there's a feeling in Chicago. It's like, hey, can we just fly under the radar for a little bit? Can we just not have constant big attention? But the theory is that instead Bears are going to be Bears Commanders Sunday Night Football in week 1 instead for Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. And it's there goes that dream.
Yeah. You're not going to get the low key. It's too late, especially if you listen to yesterday's Locked On NFL with me and Louie, where I said that the Bears will win the NFC North. The hype train is going down the tracks, and there's nothing that you guys can do. I hope we get that Sunday Night Football matchup.
I think it'd be great. I mean, selfishly, and the one benefit there from a scheduling standpoint is if you get Bears Commanders week 1, then we can stop talking about the Hail Mary play for the rest of the season. Because if it's Bears Commanders in week 14, then all season, every Hail Mary, everyone's going to be talking about the Bears Commanders. But if you get a new game for people to talk about between those two teams, then that kind of even if the Bears lose that game against this game,
right,
the monkey still comes off the back. So it doesn't have to be this, oh, you remember the Hail Mary play? Oh, what's going to happen to this Hail Mary? No, just get it over with, get it out of the way. I'm not too mad about it.
Well, you'll be even more ready to stop talking about that Hail Mary if they do play week 1 Sunday Night Football, because you'll be hearing about it for the next 3 or 4 months. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, Lauren Cox. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.